As 2023 general elections draws near, the mind games have begun. Spokesperson representing each other's candidate will be working overtime to prove their candidate should be elected and why they are best suited for the position over others. The spokesperson of the All Progressive Congress, APC Presidential Campaign Council, Festus Keyamo, has said that the People's Democratic Party, PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, is the least candidate out of the three leading presidential candidates in terms of capacity to make decisions. Mr. Keyamo said the former vice president has never held an executive position where the buck stops with him, whereas the candidate of his party, APC, Bola Tinubu, and their Labour Party opponent, Peter Obi, are ahead because of their experiences as former governors of Lagos and Anambra states, respectively. Reacting to Keyamo's statement, former presidential aide Reno Omokri has berated the Minister of State for Labour and Employment for saying that the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, is more experienced in governance than the former vice president, Atiku Abubakar. Omokri said Keyamo displayed ignorance over the statement. He said it was Atiku who presided over the nation when former President Olusegun Obasanjo traveled out while in office in 2003. So joining us now to discuss Festus Keyamo's recent statement on the competence of People's Democratic Party flag bearer Atiku Abubakar is Reno Omokri, a lawyer, human rights activist. Welcome to the show, Reno. Great to have you once again. Reno, what would be your reaction to what Festus Keyamo said? And let's just get the facts out. Because he said something. He said that the only time that, and this was what he stated, that the only time that any president deputized for, and the president that was not around, the vice president, was because President Buhari was not around and Yemi Osinbajo was actually acting president. And he said that as against the fact that Atiku Abubakar had no experience, that he never did that and all of that. I think he also went further to say that all the role of the vice president, whatever they suggest as regards the economy and everything, is all advisory. I mean, what's your rebuttal to all of that, he said?
Well, it seems that Keyamo is relying on his opinion rather than the law. And, right now his opinion has been purchased by Bola Tinubu. So, of course, he would say that. Now, let's look at what the law says. If you look at Section 153 of our Constitution, the vice president is constitutionally the head of the National Economic Council. I think about 2 months ago, while I was in Canada, you interviewed me and you made that point, Rufai, when you were defending Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the current vice president. So he is an executive in that position because he heads the National Economic Council. If you look at our constitution, it's very similar to the United States Constitution because that's where we copied it from. Nigeria and the United States are one of the only few countries that have executive vice presidents, whereby there are constitutional rules clearly defined for them that even the president cannot fire them from. So when you have the National Economic Council, you're presiding there, you're making economic decisions. If you recall, Infraco, which you brought up the last time, was a vehicle that was brought out by the National Economic Council under Osinbajo. But under the former vice president, or rather then vice president Atiku Abubakar, it went further. The National Economic Council was the vehicle whereby the debt relief that Nigeria got was discussed with the 36 state governors because, it's composed of the vice president as chairman and the 36 state governors as members, as well as the governor of the central bank. So between 1999 and 2007, when Vice President Atiku Abubakar held sway over the National Economic Council, all the major participants, Bola Tinubu, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, and Peter Obi, served under him. Look at that word, under him. So he was more like the boss of bosses. So how can you say that the people who served under him had more experience than him? It's not possible. Bola Tinubu served under him 1999 to 2007. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso served under him 1999 to 2003. He wasn't re-elected. And then Peter Obi served under him from 2006 to 2007. Even beyond that, you also have the National Council on Privatization, which is not a constitutional body, but a statutory body. And then the vice president heads that body. And if you recall, when there were probes being made by the National Assembly into the National Council on Privatization, it was Atiku Abubakar that they had to go to because he was the one who headed it. And he did a very, very good job. He was cleared by the National Assembly. So going further, you begin to see that when, and you mentioned this, in 2003, specifically July 10, 2003, when the president traveled, I believe he went to Namibia, and then the infamous incident with Ngige occurred when Ngige was abducted as a sitting governor, locked in the toilet. Ngige called the then vice president. And if you see his interview that he gave to your sister publication this day, August 16th, 2020, he said that when I called the vice president, he called the then Inspector General of Police, Tafa Balogun, and ordered him Look at that word. Ordered him to reinstate me. That is an executive decision when you order the Inspector General of Police. So it's not, I don't know where Festus Keyamo is coming off making these points. These are very, very unprofessional points because he's a senior advocate of Nigeria. He should know better. But I guess these kinds of things happen when you've allowed someone like Bola Tinubu buy your voice.
Right, thank you. All this fuss about the role that a vice president plays in Nigeria reminds me of the current row with regards to running mates and would-be vice presidents of Nigeria, both in the APC over religion and in the PDP with regards to the choice Atiku Abubakar made, from which the dust still has not settled. What is your take on the outing that Governor Sanwo-Olu, obviously an APC stalwart, made to Rivers State to commission a project for Nyesom Wike, and the talk there from Rivers APC that Nyesom Wike, governor of Rivers State, might be working with them for the Ashiwaju ticket?
Well, that's very incorrect. A lot of people, they get caught up with drama. And I've said before that the best predictor of future events is past events. You see, Governor Wike has a long history of inviting members of the APC and other political parties to commission projects in the state. This is not the first time. He's invited Kayode Fayemi, who was the governor of Ekiti State, and then the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum. He's invited other people, and he's done this long before. I think he invited Fayemi, this was 3 years ago, long before there was any talk about him being president or vice president. So he has a history. It's just because he's doing this now, and then people are reading meanings to it because of the drama that's happening. Governor Wike is a much-loved member of the People's Democratic Party, and he himself has said he's not going to leave the party. We love him. He has said some things which, if you read what he has said and listen to what he has said, this is a man that knows that the People's Democratic Party is going to form the next government, and he's committed to our party.
Right. Let's talk about Governor Wike by extension and Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. We saw that both men met at Professor Jerry Gana's house. How's that been? What has been, the talks going on as regards that reconciliation and conversation, as regards what's happening in the PDP? Because, we're still hearing stories here and there that a lot of people are still saying, yeah, things are still being fighting, they're still split down the middle.
Well, things are going very well. It's not right to bring out everything that you talk about as a family in public, but things are going very well. The fact that they met is an indicator that things are going very well. People are always going to have stories. You have the media, they've got to sell newspapers, they've got to get ratings. So, of course, they're going to like to stir up drama. But things are going on very well. This man, like you said, he's left Rivers State. He came to Abuja, and he's had talks with former Vice President Waziri Atiku Abubakar, who's now the People's Democratic Party presidential candidate. So this is an indicator that things are going well. And those who wish the People's Democratic Party ill and want division in our party are going to be sorely disappointed.
Right, I'm sure that's really good for people in your party to hear, but Governor Wike continues to make cryptic comments. Exactly how well is this rapprochement going? Because what was reported in the press was that the two gentlemen, Waziri Atiku Abubakar and Governor Wike, had a private meeting, and then they were supposed to set up camps with equal numbers of people populated by their loyalists to thrash out certain details. How is that going? What are those details being thrashed out? Because it's also been reported that positions are being discussed. Should PDP win, who gets what? Is that correct? How far are those negotiations going?
Those are confidential negotiations. These are confidential talks. And so it will be very wrong for me to come here and then begin to talk about things that are ongoing and are confidential. But as regards cryptic comments, I think it was you, Tindu, that mentioned that, yes. Cryptic comments, that's just how Governor Wike talks. He didn't start now. He's always done that because he's a very cerebral person. And because he's cerebral, he tends to do that. And he's got a gravelly voice. So even if he just wakes up and says, good morning, just because of his gravelly voice, it does sound almost cryptic. That's just his, it's the personality. People should not read more than what they should read into it. Things are going well. They've met. People who expect that the People's Democratic Party is going to go up in flames are going to be sorely disappointed. Waziri Atiku Abubakar has said he is the unifier, and we're seeing this in action. He is unifying the party. What are we seeing with other parties? What are we seeing with the APC? We're seeing issues with the APC because, I think it was on your show, or maybe it could have been channels, that Rotimi Amechi came up and said that even those that voted for Bola Tinubu are now disappointed. They regret their votes. He did say that, and then you got other camps within the APC. You got people like Babachi Lawal, you got Dogara, and others coming to say they're not going to accept the Muslim ticket that has come up. They didn't expect this. So that's where you have division. In the People's Democratic Party, we've got an ethnically and religiously balanced ticket. We are unifying. We got our acts together. If we win the election tomorrow, we're ready to start hit the ground running. Things are looking good for our party. We are ready to govern. No other party, as I speak to you, is as ready as the People's Democratic Party and the team of Waziri Atiku Abubakar and Ifeanyi Okowa.
Okay, but the APC doesn't think that. And when you see the arguments they've been making, take for instance, they've been making arguments as regards, insecurity in Nigeria, saying that during the time of the PDP, that nobody could go to Abuja, that there were bombings all through and the likes. Yesterday, part of the gains of the APC that Mr. Festus Keyamo was talking about, he said they have done rail, they have done infrastructure, they have done a lot. Concerning the economy, the argument they make is the fact that, COVID-19 affected, international forces affected. What do you respond to all these arguments as regards the APC making?
Let's focus on the facts. Now, you are not the APC, neither the APC or the PDP are in a position to judge, on security. There's one global body that has that authority, one global body, and it's an international body, the Global Terrorism Index. And the Global Terrorism Index has said that under the People's Democratic Party administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan, Nigeria was the fourth most insecure country in the world. However, under this administration, Nigeria is now worse. We are the third most insecure country in the world. So that should say a lot. Under former President Jonathan, elections held in every local government of Nigeria. Can that happen today? Under former President Jonathan, he talked about railway. They didn't build these railways. The super-fast 187-kilometer Kaduna-Abuja railway was built by us. Now, the Lagos to Kano railway was revived by us. We revived the railway in 5 out of the 6 geopolitical zones, and the railways were moving. The president himself entered a rail from Lagos all the way to Ibadan. The then vice president Namadi Sambo entered a rail all the way from, and then incidentally, I think he invited Amici from Port Harcourt all the way to, I believe it was somewhere in Aba, if I'm not mistaken. You never heard that bandits attacked railways or attacked a train under our administration and abducted hundreds of citizens. You never heard that. Yes, there were initially, at the initial stage, there were attacks in Abuja, but we were able to overcome them, and then we drove them, and then they were driven to, not even Borno State, they were driven to the Lake Chad area, to just small camps. So we were able to make progress, under our administration, we were able to make serious progress. Nigerians can ask themselves, did you ever hear of a thing like bandits in Nigeria under former President Jonathan? No, bandits it was just a new thing that we heard. And then how did you hear it? Nasir El-Rufai was on Politics Today on channels, and he said that his administration, that was in 2016, had been paying these people not to kill. Now, we're seeing that it was this administration, he admitted it, that he was paying them. And after he made that statement, we've seen that all hell has broken loose, because how can you pay killers not to kill? It doesn't make sense, because if they know that they can get money by killing, what's going to happen? They're going to keep on killing because they want money. So that talk by Festus Keyamo is again talk by somebody whose voice has been purchased by Bola Tinubu. But I know he's selling the bad product. And because he's selling the bad product, he can't talk about that product. So he'll want to just do some reverse psychology by attacking by attacking the People's Democratic Party administration. They've been in government now for 7 years. We left a debt of about 12 trillion naira. Today, Nigeria's debt is almost 50 trillion naira. It's actually 46 trillion naira. Now we are spending something like about 4.6 trillion naira on debt servicing. And when I say debt servicing, I'm not saying debt repayment, debt servicing. So if you look at it, one of the things that Festus Keyamo talked about, he praised Bola Tinubu for raising Lagos's IGR. And listen, look, I've said it before, Bola Tinubu was one of the best governors in Nigeria. I give him credit for that because he was able to do a lot of things. However, what he didn't tell Nigerians is that Bola Tinubu met a debt in Lagos of less than $100 million. And right now, Lagos is so indebted, Lagos owes billions of dollars. As a matter of fact, Lagos alone owes 12.6% of Nigeria's total debt. So if you look at the IGR and then compare it to the debt, that is a net loss. So these are the things that Festus Keyamo, because he knows he's selling a bad product, he cannot come and defend that product. So he has to start pouring spaghetti on the wall and looking at, see if it's going to stick.
Well, if you ask him, I'm sure he'll tell you he knows no such thing. When you say his voice has been purchased by Bola Tinubu, what do you mean? Do you mean that he's been paid for a service, as a lot of people are paid to do a job?
Okay, I'll tell you what I mean by that his voice has been purchased. This is a man who's meant to be Minister of Labor and Productivity. In fact, I think they should change the name of that ministry under him to Ministry of Labor and Unproductivity, because we've seen that he's very unproductive. Why? Look at his main remit. The number one job that he's meant to be doing is to handle the ASU strike. ASU has been on strike for a record period, the longest period. And then here is a man who is meant to be the minister in charge of ASU, who is meant to be the minister in charge of getting 3.6 million Nigerian university students back to school. And then he's left his place of primary assignment to go and be a spokesman for Bola Tinubu. What could have been responsible for that? That means that his voice has been purchased. Look, ASU strike right now is probably the number one national emergency, because when you have 3.6 million youths at home, they become restive. It's going to lead to insecurity. It's going to lead to depression. A lot of them are going to start feeling suicidal. And then you have this man whose responsibility is to zero in on the ASU strike and then resolve it. And then he's left that, and then he's gone to become the spokesman to a presidential candidate. So that's to tell you that for Festus Keyamo, politicking is more important to him than governing.
Right, I have another question for you about the fate of Iyorchia Ayu. That consensus that heralded him as becoming national chairman of PDP held up until the primaries, after which there have been calls for him to step down because he offended some by proclaiming publicly that Governor Tambuwal was the hero of the day, he's not partial, he's impartial, and what have you. So do you think that his position might become untenable in the lead up to the election, or might he retain that position until after the election, depending on how it goes for your party?
You see, what I've said before is that the best predictor of future events is past events. In the People's Democratic Party, we're very disciplined with our policies, with our principles, with our hierarchy, with our bodies. What we have is a system whereby if the elected president from our party is from the North, then immediately all positions that were previously held by the North will revert to the South. So that means that the chairmanship of the party will revert to the South automatically. And then maybe the board of trustees will revert to the South automatically. We had that under former President Obasanjo, whereby you had a succession of northern chairmen of the People's Democratic Party. You had Solomon La, you had Barnabas Gemade, you had the man who was Minister of Agriculture under Buhari from Benue State. You had a succession of northern People's Democratic Party chairmen. And then, when the party elected a northern president, then the same thing happened. Those positions that were held by the North, reverted to the South. So that's what's going to happen in Nigeria, in our party, in our government, when we win the election. Not if, but when we win the election on February 25, 2023. Those positions currently being held by the North will revert to the South. So you're going to have a Southern PDP chairman, you're going to have a Southern People's Democratic Party Board of Trustees chairman. So that's what's going to happen. So, I will urge people, in our party to look at the past, look at our constitution, look at our policies, and then just be patient until we win this election.
You meant Audu Ogbe.
Audu Ogbe, yes. Thank you very much, Audu Ogbe.
Okay.
I'm getting older.
Okay.
Aren't we all?
Reno, another quick thing I'd like to ask you is about, one, the PDP. What's the position with other governors? The likes of Seyi Makinde, which is a big governor for you guys in the Southwest, has not said anything while all of this crisis has gone on. Anyway, Governor Autumn said the other day that yes, definitely people like Shea Makinde will still stay on and all of that because this was part of, those affiliated to Wiki that are disgruntled. That's one. What's your take on all of that? Secondly, I'd like to ask you, part of the things Festus Keyamo said the other day while he was on television was the fact that the farmer headers crisis has been resolved. And he said the government solved the problem by setting up something called the Rural Livestock Law. Probably, I think that's the most famously Ruger back and forth, the livestock law they put in place. What's your take on that? What's your reaction to that? These are the issues he put forward.
Okay, first of all, with Sheyi Makinde, you have to understand that internally in Oyo State, he had a dispute with his deputy governor. And so that took a lot of his focus, a lot of his attention, because I believe the deputy governor, I think he probably left the party for another party, and there was some internal wranglings. So you can't expect him, while he's carrying an elephant on his head, to try to use his tool to kill an ant. So he's preoccupied with that. And we do understand, and we sympathize, and we hope that he resolves that situation and he resolves it coming out on top. On the issue raised by Festus Keyamo, and this is why I say that Festus Keyamo's voice has been purchased. I mean, how can any reasonable person, any sane person say that the farmer herders crisis has been resolved? Look at what's happening in Benue State. Just yesterday, on Friday, the governor of Benue State, Samuel Otom, had to launch his own state security apparatus to fight herders who were menacing farmers and Benue citizens, killing them. Every day in southern Kaduna, Nigerians are being killed. Not every other day, every single day. Nigerians are being killed. You saw the documentary by BBC that was, it led to fines by the National Broadcast Commission. You saw what was happening in a state like Zamfara State, whereby it becomes so bad that an emir was so scared that he had to turban one of these bandits. And then in that documentary, they asked the bandits, "How many Nigerians have you killed?" And then the man, he thought for a while and he said, "Look, I can't even remember." He says, I don't even kill anymore. It's my boys that now kill. All I do is kidnap. So, I mean, Festus Keyamo, for him to say that, it beggars belief that a man who is meant to be a senior advocate of Nigeria has reduced himself to that level because his voice has been purchased. Look, this is an administration whereby the spokesman to the president, the official spokesman to the president, Femi Adesina, said, and I'm quoting, this is a quote, "It is better to give land for ranching than death." Just look at that. Look, the situation, the solution to this issue was the answer given to you, Arise, by Waziri Atiku Abubakar, when I believe it was even Tundu who asked that question. He said, "Listen, I have 1,000 herd of cattle. They have never left Adamawa State." Now, I wish that you'd ask a follow-up question why they never left Adamawa State and why Adamawa State is one state where this farmer headers crisis does not happen. It's because Waziri Atiku Abubakar has a company called Rika Gado. Now, he's one of the biggest investors in agriculture in Nigeria. So what they do is that they grow rice and then they mill the rice. They grow a lot of other products like maize and other products, and then they mill them. They sell to Nigerians. But here's what they do: like the husk of the rice, the byproducts of the agricultural produce, they turn it into animal feed, and then they feed their own livestock, and then they sell to other farmers and even to herders to feed their own livestock. That is a solution. You see that even this man, Waziri Atiku Abubakar, is not yet president, and yet he already has a business that is providing solutions. And look at what he said. He said, "Look, I believe that the farmer header crisis is a state issue. So under my presidency, each state will be allowed to address it the way they deem fit." So if you look at someone like Akeredolu in Ondo State, look at what is proposed. All the people in the forest in my state, you cannot stay in the forest. You've got to vacate the forest, and you've got to register with our state government. Now, under an Atiku Abubakar presidency, then such a state will be allowed to do that. So the Land Use Act, which is still in subsistence, allows states to be in control of their resources, their land resources.
Okay, Reno.
So you don't have a big man. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, Reno. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry, I had to cut you in. We had to call it. It's fine.